Welcome to Touched and Empowered, a show created to empower individuals to value their lives by hosting think tank discussions that will inspire positive action. Touched and Empowered with Katie and Ace starts now.
Welcome to this episode of Touched and Empowered. I am Katie, and I am interviewing two fantastic women who, in my mind, are taking the world by storm. Now, I don't know how many people know them yet, and I don't care because I think that they're the best celebrities in the entire world based on what they've been able to accomplish. I have Rhonda and I have Deb, and you guys are doing something absolutely fantastic with helping women find their words. And you have this Empowering Women's Alliance that you have created. And going through your bios, I've seen where you guys have gone through situations where you've struggled with this isn't fulfilling. You struggled with wearing this hat, that hat, that hat, that hat, yet you've been able to overcome these. And I just want to say welcome and find out what fun stuff you have in store to help not only me, because heaven knows I'm going to absorb as much as I can, but everyone else who's listening in reference to just first, I guess, the awareness as to, yeah, I know I'm struggling, but what do I do next?
So my name is Rhonda Peoples. I'm one of the co-founders, she's the other, of Empowering Women Alliance. And really, honestly, we got started by me being in a course, which is a life course that has you on the court of life, like with a coach on the skinny branches, the ones that you avoid in life and say you can't do. That's where I've been hanging at for a while, as has Deb. And in that process, created a game in the world. It was something that I could not or didn't know how to do, had no instruction, and I needed to build a team of people to do this project. And I had somebody suggest to me that I write a book, and I was like, nope. I'm not writing a book. I'm not old enough. I don't know how to write a book. I don't know anything about it. I don't speak properly. I am not that person. And so after several enrolling conversations, I chose to write a book. And the very first person that I called was my very good friend, Deb Anderson. And the reason I reached out to Deb is because Deb and I, we had interactions at that time, and the interactions were Deb sharing who she was and where she came from. And I know her training and development in life. We've done the same courses, different times, but same type of courses. But of course, we each have our own stories. And in sharing her stories, oh my gosh, like she is, and you'll find out, a magnificent speaker, enunciation. She uses words I don't even know how to pronounce. And she's just has you on the edge of your seat when she's speaking just about normal everyday things. And so I knew that that was the person that I wanted to share that, guess what I'm doing? And that's what I said to her. I called her, I said, guess what I'm doing? She goes, what are you doing? And I'm going, I'm writing a book. And she said, oh my God, that is awesome, Rhonda. You know so many women that you could bring a bunch of women together and you could collaborate a book. And I was like it hit me like a brick, like, oh my God, this is it, right? Build a team, right? Do things you know how to do. Like it was all right in line. And she jumped in with me at that moment and said, I'm with you. And so that's what has really gotten us started. And so, our book is about to be released next month. We have another book in the pipeline, getting ready to go into the publisher, Empowering Women with Words. Life-Changing Conversations is our first book. Empowering Women with Words. What is it, Deb? What's the tagline?
Vulnerable Stories of Courage.
Vulnerable Stories of Courage is the book 2. And it is really, you spoke about it earlier, Katie, it's inspiring. We inspire women to rediscover their voices. When we were babies, we all had voices, right? We all learned to speak. We had nothing in our way. In fact, our parents probably got to the point where they're like, gosh, I wish I really wouldn't have taught her how to speak, right? So we were always encouraged to share and to speak and to talk. And then there's things that happen in our lives that tell us not to.
Right.
And I just got chills through my entire body when I said that, because it's very deep. That comment's very deep. And there's almost a taboo around women speaking their truth. And so what we do is we help women rediscover their voices and rediscover what it is to be their true, authentic self, and unapologetically powerful in that stance. And we do that with creating a group of women that are coming together. They don't know each other. And we're creating a safe, loving, inspirational, high vibration community to get real about the taboo. Like, so real that Deb and I have experienced where in the first book, it was me kind of sharing. I was pretty real pretty quickly about my story, and it blew women out of the water. And then in the book that Deb led, our second book, there were some women that have done some work, and so they were very authentic about their story. Like, they really told their story, and some women couldn't hear it. Like, they had stuffed their story so deep, so hard, so deep down in that they didn't even want to touch the monster. And Deb, in this case, had very authentic conversations with a couple of these ladies. Most of them stayed, but some women left the group because they could not face the closet that they had put that into. And it's really unfortunate because so many women are still taught and still follow that thread of, you just don't talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it's not real, right? You just put it away. Like, my sisters, when they read my chapter, they were like, why would you even talk about it now? Like, you're older, it's past, it's in the past, we don't need to talk about it. Everything's fine. It's not happening. Like, why would you bring it up now? And they and many people don't get the shackles that you continue to have on you that are invisible when you haven't told your story, that you haven't stood up to your truth. And that's what we do. The result is a book.
Which is a fantastic result, because it then allows other people to catch a glimpse as to, oh, if they were able to overcome, then I can overcome.
Absolutely.
That's
Amen.
exactly right. When Rhonda and I first started with this, we each knew women who had a story to tell. They had done transformational work. They had had some kind of a breakdown or a big mess in their life, and they came through the other side, and they had an inspiring story to tell about it. Some of them had a how-to. This is what happened to me, and now I can take you through those steps so that you don't have to learn that life lesson that I learned the hard way, as hard as I did. Some of them just were sharing for the first time something that had happened, what they had made it mean, and then what their breakthrough was coming through the other side of it. So we knew women who had those stories, and we had talked with one another about it. But then when it came to writing it down, that was an entirely different conversation. And when we came together to write, I had had a little experience with writing groups in the past. And I knew that one of the things that can really shut you down when you're trying to tell your story is criticism, is having somebody jump and stomp on what it is that you're trying to share. And some women never come back from that. They never try again. So Rhonda and I knew that we needed to create a very nurturing environment, one that would draw women out, have them speak their truth in such a way that it could be received, accepted, and encouraged rather than shut down and discouraged. And so we created a process that's really, we haven't seen anywhere else, where we review one another's chapters rather than critique them, or rather than, I don't even know what another word is because we don't go there anymore. But in our review process, we are all about pulling out the gift, what it was that you heard in someone else's story that is a gift that you can take away. What is the life lesson that you now want for yourself? What is the solution that you came up with that creates the little light bulb to go off over your own head and says, oh my God, yes, if she can make it through this, I can too. And then we discovered that we were all about not only empowering women, helping them find their voices, but also helping them find their way through the storytelling process. And in doing that, we discovered we continued to have breakthroughs. We continued to transform ourselves. And sometimes who we were when we came through this process of writing our stories was entirely different than who we had ever expected ourselves to be. I know that when my business partner, Susan Johnson, and I started writing our chapters for the book, our idea was very simple. We had created a coaching program called Purpose and Possibility Coaching. I was going to write a chapter about finding your purpose. She was going to write a chapter about the power of possibility. And we thought that what a great introduction to our coaching program. We had no idea that when we started, it was going to reveal so much more. For one thing, like Rhonda said, we had to be willing to get real about our lives. We had to be willing to show the not so nice things, as well as the gloss that all of us like to put on ourselves when we go out in public. And once we began peeling away those layers of the onion, we found that what we had to say was even more powerful as a result, because it was true. And because it was true, it was ultimately empowering for ourselves and for other women reading our stories.
That is absolutely amazing. And I have been a part of several different collaboration books. So I understand the process of being part of the community. But what you guys have created is something that I haven't come across either. I know that on 2 of the collaboration books, or 3 of the collaboration books I've worked with, this is what they're striving towards, is to create this kind of community to where we can help people heal and break through while they're working on their chapters. While there's this other one that's just like, no, just give me your chapter and we're done with it.
Right.
And so I like the idea that you focus so much on the self-awareness, the self-healing, the self-discovery part of the process on writing, because that was not something that I was aware of when I was writing the first couple chapters that I wrote for the first 5 or 6 books that I was a part of. I never considered it part of the healing journey. I was just like, oh, let me get this event out of my head and onto a piece of paper. And since I've done so much healing, since I wrote those chapters, I've gone back and looked at it and I'm like, oh, yeah, that was like the preteen version of a rated R movie. So going back and rewriting those chapters just for myself, I think has helped me get through those parts and pieces of my life.
Yes. Yeah, our review process does that, because you get an opportunity to take another look at your chapter based on someone else's perceptions of it. Because not only in our reviews do we tell one another what the gift was that we got, but we can also ask questions. We can say, can you tell me a little more about this? Or I'm not quite sure what you were wanting to get across about that. And that allows us to go back into our chapters and revise in a way that's not the way that a critic would want us to revise, but in a way that somebody who genuinely wants to know more would based on the questions that they would ask us, it would draw us forth even further. And that's where the transformation happens, in that community of like-minded, genuine-hearted women who are wanting the best for you and wanting your chapter to be the absolute best that it can be. As a result, when we finished writing this, our chapters were polished. We shopped our book to 12 publishers and got 10 offers.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's huge, because that's normally not the case.
No, it is not the case. And not only that, but our publisher has signed on for the series, realizing what we were up to and what an important difference that these books were going to be making in the world. And we've also started getting calls and had conversations with women in other parts of the world wondering, how can we do this? How can we create what you've done? And we're very excited to think about places like the Middle East now having a forum for women to be able to speak their truth and a way to get published. I know I saw that you just got a little goosebumps.
The idea as to what you've done is not only so empowering, but also replicatable.
Yes.
And that I really love this. I'm going to call it a refinement process, because it's not critics, it's not judgment, it's completely free of all that, but it's providing insight back and refinement to where this is what I heard, am I hearing it correctly?
Right.
Or this is what I read, am I reading it correctly?
Right. Right. And sometimes we come back through and say, would you consider, right? Would you consider, or I would like to hear some more emotion? Because a lot of times, when you stuff, you try to get rid of that emotion, and you try to just make it so factual that like it almost didn't happen. And or you've created other stories around what really happens. And what's the amazing thing is that when you're going through this review process, and we know this, we try to tell our little stories, but it's very apparent from the people that are listening to our stories that there's something missing, that there's some fabrication, or that you're kind of pointing to something, but you're not really saying it. I mean, we obviously, sexual abuse is a very high percentage of women that encounter that, and it's unfortunate. And it doesn't always have to be that, or it could really be any event in life that has you create some kind of a meaning around it. But let's say it's the sexual abuse. Well, that's the number one taboo that you never speak of, right? Because normally it's somebody very close to your family, right? And you don't
air the dirty laundry.
Yeah, you don't air the dirty laundry. And so we would have ladies kind of dancing around, right, thinking that they were telling their truth. And so in the review process, like, we would just really ask the questions like, this is my gift, this is the gift that's happening here, and would you consider? And it occurs to me that there's something else going on here that you might not be speaking of. And we always bring up, like, remember that your truth is making a difference for another woman,
right,
that has experienced what you've experienced. So if you dance around and you're not clear about what it is that you're saying, that healing process doesn't help somebody else. And so getting very clear into what happened, what were the facts, not getting caught up in the emotion of it all and what we all made it mean about ourselves and about them and so on and so forth, and getting very clear about that really is a release for the woman telling the story, but it is access for another woman to read that, be very clear about it, and get that there's no blaming, there's none of that there's no beating anybody up, there's none of that goes on. And if you talk about abuse in the world, right, other people will be, oh my God, and I can't believe you talked to him, or did you take him to court? And you go down that ugly path. It's not the only path to take.
right.
And
that's
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's just, that's not the only way that women get shut down. A lot of us get shut down from being our authentic selves, from speaking up, from speaking out about a lot of things, about playing small in our lives, about not making waves, about not following our passion because people want to fit us into a box. And so a lot of the stories are about coming out of our individual boxes, first discovering that we were in a box and then discovering our way out. And that's one of the ways that we find our voices too, when we discover that we were in the box in the first place and then discover that we can climb out of it on our own. So it's not only those sexual abuse stories, there's a lot of other ways that we shut ourselves down.
Yeah, because my sister, actually, I'm going to call one of my sisters out on this. I had a big aha moment about 8 months ago, and I was on the phone with my sister telling her about it. And she's like, it's about time you saw that. It only took you 20 years to figure this out. And I'm like, really? I just took the blinders off. Give me a little bit of time to be happy. I got the blinders off.
Yes.
I can actually see something moving forward now.
That's awesome.
Good for you, Katie.
But no, so I can understand the one person who left the group because they weren't aware or ready to take those blinders off yet because they were still in their comfort zone. And coming out of your comfort zone, whether it be to just bring awareness to yourself or bring awareness to others, share your story with yourself, share it with your intimate group, or write it in a book, that takes a lot of courage.
And when you do that, there's so much freedom that you find, and there's so much opportunity to create possibility. Like possibility is now alive because you're free from those shackles that tell you, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. One of the women's groups that I created was a celebration group. In the morning time, we would get together and there was just a couple of us and we would celebrate, because especially us women, we walk around with our list, our to-do list, like, and at the end of the day, we're like, I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. I didn't get this done. Right. And so I have flipped that around and turned it into, we're going to have a celebration call about what are we celebrating that we got accomplished. Right. I had women that could not celebrate and they left the group. They didn't have access to celebrate anything. They couldn't grasp it. And that is a shame. They're so plugged into what the world says is supposed to be.
One of my biggest ahas when I started a active gratitude practice was celebrating the fact that I got out of bed.
Yes.
There are days that the depression and everything else was just so bad that I did not want to get out of bed. The fact that I was able to get up out of bed, brush my teeth, shower, that is a miracle on some days. So just having that little bit of awareness, again, if you're not ready to take those blinders off, you don't see how amazing it is.
That's right. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So Rhonda and I, realizing that the books were even bigger than we thought that they were going to be, we realized that we needed to create something for the books to live inside of and to create new ways for women to find their voices and new ways to reach out to women everywhere. And so we created the Empowering Women Alliance to be able to reach beyond the covers of the book and out into the community to start bringing women together. And we're going to be offering workshops. We're going to be having speaking events. We have merchandise now. People were demanding merchandise because they wanted to support what we were up to. Yep, there you go, Ron.
I love the butterfly. That's a beautiful image.
Well,
it really is the transformation.
Oh yeah, and there's our tagline: authentically self-expressed, unapologetically powerful. But the butterfly, if you think about it, really is a powerful image because it starts as a caterpillar and goes through a transformation and then comes out of the chrysalis, stretches its wings and flies. And each one of the women who has completed a chapter in our process is flying in her life, is soaring now.
Which is amazing. I mean, I remember when I first started my entrepreneurship and I was told you have to change, you have to change, you have to change. Changing is easy because you could change back. Transforming is one and done. There's no way to go back. And finding these tools that you guys are offering to help people realize their truth, where they could speak their truth without fear, they can be unapologetically, authentically, I'll get it all out of my mouth. I know I will. Unapologetically, authentically themselves is an amazing gift. And I have to applaud you both, because that is something that I think myself, Ace, and other intuitive coaches that I work with, we want to be able to help improve that kind of impact and provide that kind of services, because we know that it is it's being craved for. People want this.
They
Absolutely.
do. They're hungry for it. When we've been having our conversations on the screen, we've been meeting via Zoom with the gals that are in the groups that are writing these books. We discovered that we had common themes, not only in our writing and our stories, but also in the values that we had started espousing in our lives. The values that were the most important to us, and we created those values as part of, it's built into the Empowering Women Alliance, and we live those values every day. We don't just pay lip service to them. And we value creating leadership, but this is true leadership, not being bossy, but being a leader who steps forward in such a way that she embodies all of the values that we talk about, to lead by example, to empower others, to include others in a collaborative community, to foster sisterhood. So we're all about bringing these values to life in every encounter that we can. Just Rhonda and I talking with you today, being as forthright and as honest speaking as we can, are embodying those values now too, because we're all about authenticity. And you can't be authentic if you're hiding behind something, if you're afraid to say something, if you're afraid to be your true self.
And that is so true. And going back on the just being able to share your stories, I'm going to call my mom out on this one. My mom has a TEDx talk on how to have the talk about suicide. And she wrote a fantastic talk and was practicing it. And the organizer of the TEDx event said, "That's great, but you can't deliver it because it's all technical. You didn't tell us what happened. And I want you to share what happened." And my mom actually went back to my sister Stephanie and said, "I hate to say this, I can't remember what happened that day." And my sister laughed, and thankfully she's got a very kind heart. And it was all about the shopping. It was just a really bad shopping trip when she was a teenager that was the catalyst that led to her first suicide attempt. And I'm allowed to share that. She gave me permission. But it was watching my mom have to rewrite it now that she had the remembering as to the details of actually what occurred on that day. And that is one of the, besides it touching my heart because it's family, it is a very empowering talk that's on TEDx. And I still give my mom credit for being able to do it. But I give my sister Stephanie more credit because it all started with my sister giving a 7-minute talk on her first attempt and then wanting to get the tools into the hands of teens before they needed them, which is what launched our mission back in 2019.
Wow.
Very good. That's
so yeah,
powerful.
the power of getting our stories out there really does make a difference.
Absolutely. I've lost a nephew just a couple of years ago from suicide. And, you know, it, there's a lot of blaming, just a lot of stuff around it. But you nailed it, Katie. It's the ability to share your story and be able to be authentic in who you are. Just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I actually had to apologize to my sister because I had more detailed memory of my friend's attempt than my sister's attempt. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I don't remember what happened that day. Nothing is coming to my brain. I've listened to the TEDx talk. I've heard you talk about it. I don't remember any of that. And I know that when I'm done doing more healing, I'll eventually be able to remember more details, because there was a lot of stuff going on in our world during that time. And I know that this is just my brain trying to protect me because I'm not quite there yet.
Yes.
Well, not only that, I mean, siblings, and we find this, especially, you know, in our chapters, like in my chapter as a sibling, right? We see things totally different in a situation. And, you know, we can see a particular event this way, and then we can talk to a sibling about that same event, and they've seen it this way, right? And it doesn't mean either person is wrong. That's just what pair of glasses they had on at the time in that event. Whatever was going on in their mind, whatever was going on in their world. You sound like you had a lot of stuff going on in your world.
Yes.
Right. So you looked at it in a certain way and seen or not seen, right? And your sister had this version of what was going on in her world, and they could be on two ends of the spectrum, and you were in the same room.
Yep. And it's
You don't get
amazing
that.
what our brains do. And that's
Absolutely.
one of the other reasons that I love this whole being able to express ourselves and realize that not everyone's going to agree that this is the 100% historical accurate statement on how this particular event worked, but this is what's 100% true for me, and I am honoring that.
Amen. Amen.
Yes, our perceptions are always different. We always have a different starting point. We have a different viewpoint. We have a different set of glasses, like Rhonda was saying. But yeah, the key for us in telling our stories was to be as unbiased as possible in laying it out there, and then revealing what it was that we were thinking or feeling about it. And by being really honest about that, like I said, sometimes it's not very pretty. It gives other people the opportunity to say, oh, she actually thinks those thoughts like I do. She reacts, she feels that way like I do. And if she can say that, if she can look at that whatever happened from that perspective, maybe I can shift where I am standing and look at what happened with me from that perspective too. And we're making it sound like this is all a very heavy thing. And I don't want us to end with that, because ultimately every single one of these chapters is empowering, encouraging, uplifting, enlightening. What's the other word that we always use, Rhonda? I'm missing one.
What did you say?
Inspiring. Inspiring. I left out inspiring. Each one of the stories it meets at least one of those criteria, and it hits home because it's real, it's emotional, and it tells the truth in such a way that allows someone else to get it too, if that makes sense. Yep.
It does, because sometimes we can't see something in ourselves until we see it in someone else first.
Yes. Or until someone else gives us permission. You know, Rhonda, when she was thinking she wanted to write a book, but she didn't know where to start or how to start. And then the idea that she didn't have to write a whole book by herself, but could have other women around her, really freed her up and gave her permission then to experiment with a chapter first. And it turns out she had a lot of really great stuff to say.
Yeah, I've done that where
Yes.
it's like, oh, I'm writing a chapter. Oh, wait, we're like 300 pages in.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
That's awesome.
My son was like, I can write a chapter for the Make It a Great Day book for the Teen Suicide Prevention Society, and then what he wrote was like 300 pages long. And I'm like, yeah, we're not going to put that in the book because you now have your own book.
Well, you know what the wonderful part of it is, and this is something that Deb had come up with, is we teach our ladies how to gack it out, right? Is really just to tell the whole 300 pages, right? Because most of that 300 pages is the story around the facts of what happened.
Right.
And it's our stories. And so as we work through that with these ladies in the book and with us, as we work through it, right, and we work through our process, we started shutting off the extra story, right? Because somebody would say, I don't really think that you need to have that. I think the story is like crisp and it gets right to the point, and that extra is really it's just extra conversation, it's extra words. And so in that was the healing that we got to do as an individual about our story. Like, oh, that's not really right. That's really not the part of the story. That was just what I created around it. We got to the facts about things. And that is what really allowed us to now disassociate ourselves with all the emotion and become the author of it in such a way that we're empowering other women. It's a remarkable process.
And empowering
removing the
ourselves.
fluff.
Yes.
The fluff, all the
Yes.
stuff that we had it mean.
Yes. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's
That
awesome.
is amazing. That is amazing. And I just want to thank you both for being here and, letting me pick your brains a little bit and sharing this amazing work that you are doing, this amazing community that you are building, and letting everyone know the links will be in the show notes. As soon as when the links are available, they're going to be in the show notes, because I just want to help promote you guys.
Thank you so much.
So
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
a
you so
wonderful
much.
human being, Katie. I just want to say there was such a connection when we first met, and I am so honored that you brought us on the show. You brought us to your community to share our stories and to really share how people can continue to unshackle themselves from the stories in the world. But it's through your openness and who you are in the world. And I just want to let you know that you, Katie Miller, are impacting the world and who you're being. So thank you.
Okay, the tears need to stop now because one, it's embarrassing. But no, it's not embarrassing because I'm gonna own my truth.
That's right.
It is unexpected.
Yes.
And I appreciate that because
Absolutely.
I'm sure there are other people out there that we give and we give and we give.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to receive and accept
Yes.
compliments.
Yes.
So trying to do that gracefully
Yes.
with tears coming down my face. Thank you very much. I appreciate that and recognize being seen. Thank you.
Katie, let the tears come. Your show, after all, is touched and empowered. And you touched us. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that the discussion today will inspire you to take positive action in your life. Until next week, be empowered.